We're okay. We're okay. Woo! We're okay. We made it. We made it. There's very little debris outside. In fact, you know what? Fun fact. For some reason, my neighbor has all this crap in his yard, and I have none. So I'm really, maybe Helene blew all the crap out of my yard, and that's why we were able to clean it up. But look, the wind was nowhere near as bad as anticipated in our part of Florida. It was horrible in other parts of Florida, but apparently God's smiling down. The hurricane eye wall, and again, I'm no meteorologist. I'm not even going to pretend to be, and I think meteorology is a scam myself. But I was watching some of these videos, and the reports were, what happened was apparently the eye wall just disintegrated as soon as it hit Florida. Like it was no match for Florida. And so all of a sudden, it just became wind and rain. The really damaging thing, the destructive part about this whole Hurricane Milton were the tornadoes that were going on, not just before and during, but also after, and also the human element, which we'll get to here in just a minute. Really excited for the show. We just got really exciting news about the polls for Donald Trump. I reached out to Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports, and we're going to talk to him here in just a minute. But first, listen. You're going to be hearing all about the devastation of these hurricanes for sure. You're going to be hearing all about, the flooding and there's 4 people apparently who passed away as a result. Again, I think of the tornadoes, which were much more deadly and much more detrimental. You're going to hear these stories of people like Lieutenant Dan, this crazy dude who rode out the hurricane in his sailboat in Tampa. But one of the things I want to bring your attention to is Anderson Cooper from CNN, who is one of these storm guys, and even though he's the crown jewel of the CNN network, even though he's the highest paid anchor in CNN history, even though he's the face of CNN, has been for decades, he still puts himself in harm's way, and sometimes, well, he gets harmed.
And the water now is really starting to pour over. If you look at the graph, whoa, okay, that wasn't good.
Anderson Cooper comes down to Florida to do a live report on Hurricane Milton and gets slammed in the face by a large piece of debris.
And the water now is really starting to pour over. If you look at the graph, whoa, okay, that wasn't good. We'll probably go inside shortly.
I wonder if I could just zero in on the moment that he actually gets hit with the piece of debris. Here it is. Watch. Ready? And boom, right there, boom. That piece of debris knows fake news when it sees it. That piece of debris is a Trump supporter.
If you look at the graph, whoa, okay, that wasn't good.
And I know I know I shouldn't laugh because it's not funny, although it's actually really funny that Anderson Cooper got smacked in the face. It's not funny. You're not supposed to laugh at the hardships of others, unless, of course, they're fake news reporters who spread propaganda, for their own personal benefit.
And the water now is really starting to pour over. If you look at the graph, whoa, okay, that wasn't good.
I promise that was the last time. Listen, there was some other things that were going on in this hurricane. There were other things that were going on that weren't quite as funny. There was this story of this dog. I don't know if you saw this, but there was somebody left a dog. And, Florida people usually are good people. I've met a lot of great people here in Florida, but sometimes there's Florida people that maybe don't make the best decisions. And somebody decided to leave town at the order of the government. Ron DeSantis said you should probably leave now. Now's a good time. You should evacuate, follow the evacuation orders, and they did that. But they left their dog behind. Not only did they leave their dog behind, but the really inhumane part is they left their dog chained to a fence, so the dog had no chance of escaping.
Philadelphia 1313, 1065 signal forward.
But
The Florida Highway Patrolman sees the dog, goes toward him. Look at that.
it's okay, buddy. It's okay.
He's already like waist deep in water.
It's okay. It's okay.
That's horrible.
It's okay.
Who does that kind of a thing?
It's okay.
Yeah, I'd be mad too.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I don't blame you. It's okay, buddy. It's okay.
Yeah, and now luckily, the Florida Highway Patrolman was able to find the dog. Hold on, I think I have a
Vice
photo
President
of it here
Harris and some
somewhere.
members of the
Let me pull it
media.
up. They were able to get the dog off of the fence. They brought him in, and the dog was totally okay. The dog was like perfectly fine after the whole ordeal. After they were found by the highway patrol, the dog now has a blanket, had some good food, and this story now news of this story went all the way up to the top, all the way to Governor Ron DeSantis, who wanted to let you know, look, if you did this to this dog, we have laws in Florida against this kind of thing, and we will find you.
The vet, the dog has a clean bill of health, and who knows, maybe we'll do some adoption, put the dog up for adoption, and we can have some people in Florida come and compete for it and take it. But, it's just like, I mean, people do a lot of dumb things, but you just see that. And so I hope they find the person who did it, and that person should have the book thrown at him. We've got very good laws in Florida against animal cruelty. These dogs, we've got dogs that are going to be helping in the storm. These police working dogs, they're great. They're great canines. So we don't have tolerance for that in Florida. I thought it was outrageous that somebody would do that.
Look at that dog. That's a happy dog. That's a happy dog. That dog's like, yay. So the highway patrolman rescued me, and those horrible people that tied me up are going to get the book thrown at them by Governor Ron DeSantis, America's governor. That's amazing. There's going to be a competition to it. You know how many people want to adopt this dog? I posted this earlier. I've already had 5 people ask me, how can I adopt the dog? Fun fact, I have no idea. I just got the story. Off the internet, like everybody else does. But that's basically that's basically one of the. That dog is famous, by the way. I mean, the governor of Florida is going to help that dog get adopted after they were able to rescue it because some horrible person caused that dog or left that dog locked up, chained to a fence. There's something else that happened in Tampa, and I want to show you this. I don't know. I'm not a baseball fan myself, but this is just craziness. The Devil Rays Stadium. Yeah, here it is. Look at this. This is the Tampa Bay Devil Rays. This is where they play Tropicana Field. And it had a cloth roof on it. I didn't know they made stadium roofs out of cloth, but apparently they did. And now it has no roof because look at this. Let me see if I can pause this. Look at this. This is what happens when you have a cloth roof and a Category 4 hurricane and they come together. The roof was shredded. This is like the rafters. There's little pieces of the roof that have remained. The rest of it has fallen. It fell all the way down to the field. And if you look down here, there's a bunch of cots. What happened was they had, I can't for whatever reason zoom in on that, but they had a bunch of cots in there. The linemen, there were 50,000 linemen who've been brought into the state and from all over the place. They were put up in various places. Donald Trump put a lot of them up at Doral Country Club for free. And there were cots set up in Tropicana Field. And what they were going to do was they were going to allow the linemen to live there through the hurricane. What happened was the hurricane hit, the roof got ripped off. Nobody was injured, thank God. But this is, I mean, could you imagine you're a lineman and you're laying there in a cot, or you're like, hey, I'm going to go sleep at Tropicana Field. And then all of a sudden, oh, no, I'm not. There's no roof. It's just, oh man, it was just the wild things like this did happen during the hurricane. Now, again, there was devastation. There are people that are homeless. There are people that have suffered property damage and bodily harm. And at the same time, it seems that overall, it was not as bad as it could have been. Yes, there was flooding. Yes, there were power outages. Yes, there was a massive evacuation. But for all of those reasons, it seems like this particular incident, this particular hurricane event, this weather event was not as bad as some people had predicted. And it may be because we were coming off of Helene that everyone was praying for the worst. Hoping everyone was predicting the worst, praying for the best. And it looks like our prayers were answered. Here in Florida, there's a couple reasons for that. And one of them is the preparation. Ron DeSantis, the fact that we have a governor that isn't just a puppet of the Democrat Party, but a governor who knows who put him in office, who he represents. And that kind of effective leadership is evident not just to us here in Florida, but people around the country. And one of them is Jim Cantore from the Weather Channel. Listen to what he said about Ron DeSantis here.
What you can count on here is the state of Florida. DeSantis and Guthrie are a well-oiled machine. They've got so much in line here. And Kevin said it earlier on. I want you as my state to prepare for 7 landfalls this year. All right, I want you to prepare for that. And we've already had, 5 obviously throughout the Gulf, 2, 3 here in Florida alone. But that, having that kind of forethought and getting, 50,000 utility trucks on standby, having gas reserves and things like that, because now you've got to get people back in here eventually.
Yeah, because that's exactly right. Now that we've told everyone to leave, everyone's going to start coming back, and they're going to want to come back quickly, and they're going to want to have power and light, and they're not going to want to have water in their streets, and the water is already starting to recede, as we've started to see. But the power situation is an issue. 2.9 million without power. Again, thank goodness here in my part of Florida, in the northern part of Florida near Jacksonville, at Mar-a-Lago, as I've started calling it. I don't know why it took me so long to come up with that. I was doing video outside my house and I go, here at Mar-a-Lago. So ladies and gentlemen, from now on, this will be known as Patriot HQ inside the luxurious Mar-a-Lago estate in northern Florida. But we didn't lose power. We still could. We didn't lose our internet or our cable. We did actually, this is a funny story. I don't know how this happened. I got a notice that the cable and the internet went out because they're one and the same. And I panicked for a little bit because I told you I wanted to, as long as I could broadcast, as long as we could live stream, as long as we could do Mark Kaye Saves the Republic, we were going to do Mark Kaye Saves the Republic. But it came back on at like 6 a.m. And the reason was I got a message from Comcast. They said your cable has been restored after, get this, scheduled maintenance. The cable didn't go out. Comcast cable didn't go out in my neck of the woods in Florida because of Hurricane Milton. It went out because they had scheduled maintenance during a hurricane. Who schedules maintenance during a hurricane? It just seemed, I don't know, maybe they thought, you know what, we're going to have to call the workers in anyway to prepare. Maybe while they're there, we'll just do some scheduled maintenance. Maybe it actually was a managerial feat of genius. But anyway, we'll get into more of that a little later on today. First, though, there are some real issues with Kamala Harris's campaign. Oh, by the way, Kamala Harris, thank God she was on top of this hurricane. I guess she learned her lesson from Hurricane Helene. I guess after Kamala Harris and FEMA kind of blew the whole Hurricane Helene relief effort, Kamala Harris wanted to get in on the ground floor. She wanted to get in front of Hurricane Milton. And so she called in to discuss hurricanes and wanted to make sure that everybody in Florida, everybody on television, everybody reporting was not just reporting on the hurricane, but using the proper language.
The other point, Mike, that I would make, especially it came through on the briefing from the federal experts, it's really important that we think about the language that we're using to talk about what we are predicting. Because, for example, it has moved from time to time from a Category 5 to a Category 4. It's important that we not emphasize that downgrading has happened because, in fact, the difference between Category 5 and Category 4 in terms of the danger and the damage is pretty much the same.
Wow, there's Kamala Harris. Thank God Kamala Harris got on the airwaves to tell us here in Florida the difference between a Category 4 and a Category 5 hurricane. Thank goodness we have Kamala Harris from California by way of D.C. to tell folks in Florida that a Category 5 and a Category 4 hurricane are very, very similar. So don't be thinking that just because it's a Category 4 hurricane, we're all in the clear. Thank you, Madam Vice President. It's important, folks, that we focus on the language of the hurricane. I don't know, in my 20 years, my 2 decades of living in the great free state of Florida, I can't recall one time anybody ever said, it's a Category 5 storm. Oh, wait, what? Oh, no, I'm sorry. It's a Category 4. Yeah, forget I said anything. You guys go ahead. No, don't worry about it. Send the kids to school. You no longer need to evacuate. It's only a Category 4. Nobody's ever said this woman. It reminds me of when she was explaining Ukraine. Remember? Ukraine is a small country next to a bigger country called Russia. And the bigger country, Russia, invaded the smaller country, Ukraine. And that's bad. She actually, that's bad. A hurricane, a Category 5 hurricane is just as bad as a Category 4 hurricane. So Category 4 or Category 5, that's bad. Kamala Harris. She's trying to make up for the lost time she had with Hurricane Helene. And also, let's be honest, she's got her own problems. You think the hurricane blows? You should see her poll numbers. This is a bad week for Kamala Harris. Not only did she get skewered for going on the Call Her Daddy BJ Sex podcast, not only did she get slammed for drinking beer with Stephen Colbert, drinking while America is sinking. Not only did she look like an idiot on the Howard Stern show, not to mention The View, but Joe Biden threw her under the bus a couple of times, sided with her arch nemesis Ron DeSantis, who stuck it to her on national television, and now she's losing in the swing states. She's losing in the swing states. We got new numbers from Wisconsin and Michigan. The internal polling is now matching the external polling, and CNN is actually reporting on how bad it is for Kamala Harris, her campaign, and the entire Democrat Party.
We have some new CNN reporting today about what is going on behind the scenes inside the Harris campaign and more broadly among Democrats who are growing more and more anxious about a 2016 redux. CNN's Priscilla Alvarez joins me now. Priscilla, we were just joking here at the table that anxious Democrats happen on a day that ends in Y, but this is something that perhaps is warranted given the data that they're seeing.
Yeah, they're finally seeing the real data, and now they're like panicking, going, wait a minute, who's going to win? Him? Wait a minute, whoa. Whatever happened to Kamala Harris? She's not in the lead. What about Tim Walz, the knucklehead? They're not pulling this election out. No, it's all bad. And it's all bad because her campaign has been mismanaged. First of all, she's the wrong candidate for the job. And second of all, her campaign has been mismanaged from the get-go.
This has been a campaign that was described by multiple Democrats, allies, aides, to the vice president as a good vibes campaign. But what's also creeping in now is that anxiety. The reason for that is because these polls are not really moving.
It's a good vibes / bad polls campaign. And who wouldn't want one of the good vibes / bad polls? You know what they talk about with Donald Trump all the time? They say Donald Trump's campaign is angry. Donald Trump's campaign is dark. Donald Trump campaign is always talking about the bad things in this country. Right, because we're angry. We're angry that bad things are happening in this country, and it's making us feel really dark. And we want Donald Trump to go in there and fix it all. We're not running around like Kamala Harris screaming joy every 5 seconds, pretending everything's fine, because we know it's not. And now the polls are reflecting it. And look, you got good times, but bad polls. What on earth is a woman to do?
Despite multiple battleground blitzes, despite the opportunities she has had across media outlets, there is still not a lot of movement from voters who are moving more towards her versus former President Donald Trump.
Oh, look at that. There's not a lot of movement. Those Kamala Harris people, they're like, you know what? I know you got the good vibes. I know you got the joy. I know you like to cackle. I know that you haven't done any interviews, but Donald Trump just seems like, he's, what's the word? Skilled, honest, has integrity, has a plan, has an agenda, is effective. Donald Trump feels like, I know some people say he's brash and abrasive and they don't like the indictments and all that, but there's just something about Donald Trump, like, what is it? I trust him. And I don't necessarily trust you. That's what Kamala Harris is running into. She may have good vibes, and you may have gotten your running mate with his jazz hands, who's all, the knucklehead.
I'm a knucklehead at times.
Yeah, you may have gotten that guy to come out and entertain the crowd like some kind of hired clown, and he can always do the seal clap like he always does, which is that's a whole other story with that guy. Let's go. Yeah. But, at the end of the day, nobody wants a president who's just going to give them good vibes. They want a president who's going to bring down the cost of everything and make fuel affordable and keep them safe from terrorists and war and close the border and keep the drugs off the streets and not defund the police because, fun fact, we like the police. They keep us safe and they get the dogs that people chain to the fence off of the fence so that they can be adopted by somebody with the help of the governor of the state of Florida. So all of those things that you think are good, we think are bad. And all the things that we think are bad, you think are good. So we're going to vote for Donald Trump because the things we think are good and important and necessary to sustain our republic, Donald Trump agrees with. And fun fact, we know that he can do it because he did it once before. And that's what Kamala Harris is running into. she's got some bad news with the polls. And in about 30 seconds, we're going to go straight to the source. We're going to chat with Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports. He's the head pollster at Rasmussen, and we're going to talk about the polls. I'm going to ask him some of the questions I always get about polls, and we're going to dig into the numbers and see just how bad it is for Kamala Harris. But first, before we do that, ladies and gentlemen, please take a moment to like, subscribe, share, set your notifications, all the clicky things. Wherever, if you're on YouTube, you can click subscribe, you can click the bell, you can click the thumb up, you can comment, whatever you want to do. Just take a moment here to just click around. Don't click off the page, just click around. If you're on Rumble, we want to make sure we get a thumbs up from you and maybe a comment or two. If you're listening to the podcast, make sure that you are subscribed to this podcast, because Spotify and Apple iTunes will only send you the new podcasts and the new recordings if you say, I would like the new podcasts and the new recordings. And if you're enjoying what you're hearing, if you would like to get this kind of content and information every single day, now's the time to take just a couple of seconds, subscribe, like, share, set your notifications. If you want to tell your friends about it, if you're on Facebook and you're like, this is thebomb.com, then by all means hit share and get your friends and family involved in the whole process. All right, there we go. That's my PSA about subscribing to Mark Kaye so that you can continue to get all this information. But right now, I'm very excited. We have a very, very special guest. So excited. I've been trying for a couple weeks to connect with Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports, and I'm so glad we finally did. We're having our coffee together today, which is great. And Mark, I appreciate your time. I wanted to get you on because, first of all, Rasmussen is the go-to polling. You say in your bio, people are biased, polls shouldn't be. And this may shock some folks, but polls are about as biased as the rest of the news media. Is that true?
I mean, most of the pollsters now are the news media.
Yeah.
So yeah, absolutely true.
What makes a poll? I mean, because the question we get all the time is people come up to me, they go, oh my God, Mark, Mark Kaye, help me because I'm watching the polls on CNN. I'm watching the polls on the New York Times, and all the polls say Kamala's winning. And I tell them, I go, you just can't believe the polls. And they tell me, why not? So I try to explain it, but you're the pollster. Explain, if you could, why polls are biased and why the mainstream polls that people are getting information from should not and cannot really be trusted.
Yeah, absolutely. And there's a ton of reasons why. And everybody needs to understand that polls are essentially content. They really are. And in my opinion, I'm putting out data and I help people interpret like what I put out and what the data says.
Yeah.
And I'm not going to lie about it because I'm showing you the data. But what happens generally in the mainstream media news, and most of them have brought polling in-house or they've partnered up with colleges or whatever, is that pollster reports up to the editorial board and might not even be the one writing the type up of the story about what the polls really say. And so automatically just there, you get a layer of cherry picking and narrative forming that goes on from the managerial aspect. But then it's like this more insidious thing that's tougher to root out, which is that some people just have confirmation bias. And it's really hard to have the integrity to avoid that. And I find myself battling with it all the time, as anybody who has integrity would. I'm always concerned that I'm not manipulating the data or misrepresenting what the numbers say. But just to give you an example, if you work for the New York Times and you're a pollster and you vote and everybody in your company donates to Democrats 95 to 5%,
yeah,
and you get a result back and you say, well, this doesn't match my worldview. It kind of shocks me that Trump is doing as well as he is with 18 to 39-year-olds.
Right.
Maybe you go in and you say, oh, well, maybe the electorate we have isn't quite right. And maybe there will be a little bit less of the youth vote turnout. Or maybe we have a few data outliers here. And what happens is that even sometimes data gets thrown out. Like, listen, I could throw out data points in my surveys if I wanted to all the time. And recently I've been having to because the online data is messy.
Yeah.
But what I don't do is say, okay, I threw 5 out. What does it do to the results? I threw another 5 out. What does it do to the results?
Right.
I think that kind of stuff happens. And luckily, most pollsters put out crosstabs and you can look at and interpret them and find little nuggets that explain to you, oh, I'm really upset that this poll has Harris +3. But when you look into it, you're like, oh, well, they're oversampling 2020 Biden supporters by 6 points.
Right.
Duh, like that's why.
And you brought up another really good point, because a lot of these media agencies, especially, they partner with universities.
Like,
and
that's
what
why.
we know universally about the world of academia is, I mean, it is almost across the board with the exception of like 5 universities I can name. That is they're all liberal institutions, liberal run institutions.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, their staff, the people literally programming and conducting the surveys are like students and interns and stuff like that. And I don't know the story about every single one of these people looking at the Real Clear Politics aggregate, but, Reuters Ipsos, they partnered with the Ipsos panel, which is a proprietary panel. It's only got 60,000 Americans, and it's been proven over time to be leftward leaning. Yahoo News is a left-leaning tech company. New York Times partners with Siena College.
Yeah.
Emerson, I think, is a college. Marist is NPR, right?
Yeah.
And then you see people say, oh, well, like Fox News and New York Post, their results look kind of leftward leaning than I would expect as well. But the problem is that they picked a vendor to do their polling, and that person basically just gives them numbers and they run with it. But I think what makes us unique is we are a small, lean shop, but we're doing all our own field work. Like, we're not outsourcing this stuff. And so you're getting like basically the straight through, most this is the purest, rawest form of polling feed that you can get. We're high volume too. We put out more numbers than anybody.
You're doing it all the time. We get Rasmussen updates all the time, and they're really great. And the other thing that people always say to me is they go, I'm 80 years old and I've never once been contacted by a pollster. So the big question is, who actually are these people that the pollsters are calling? How are they contacting them? Are they mostly Democrat? Are they oversampled Democrat? I mean, because a lot of Republicans that listen to the show or conservatives that we talk to say, I've never been polled.
So here's 2 troubling facts. One is that polling is getting harder by the year, and you're likely never going to be polled. And I can get into that. And the other is there will always be polling. I think those are 2 realities. It used to be a lot easier when everybody had a landline and the spam wasn't ubiquitous. People would pick up the phone and respond. That's not the case anymore. And so everybody's got to figure out where to get data from, and it's become more fragmented. And on the average, I think your average pollster might only be reaching, 200,000 people in the country, maybe max. We think we're reaching well over 1 million. And I think that means we're still getting a pretty good representative sample, but half our polling does still come from landline phones. There's 90 million of them out there, and I have 400,000 names of people who love to answer our surveys. Problem is they're almost all over 50, but over half the electorate is over 52. So it kind of works out. And then for the other half, we're going to online panels. And these are like a burgeoning part of the space. Anybody here could go out today and join an online panel. And where we shop our data from is through one of the major data aggregators. So there's like essentially a marketplace of people who will anonymously answer these polls. So if you went and like did Metro Opinion or Survimo or one of these panels, you can literally sit at home in your socks and earn money answering polls. And, the problem is that those people don't necessarily represent the electorate. They're answering polls for money. They might lie about all kinds of stuff.
Imagine
and
that.
People do lie on polls, but it's like over time, you do an election, see how you do, adjust something. Do another election, see how you do, adjust something. Which is why I think we also have an advantage, because we're just continuously polling. Everybody else is, pokes their head out of the hole
every 4 years,
September, and polls 2 or 3 times and disappears for 4 years.
All right, so let's talk about the polls, because yesterday, right before I went to bed, I saw there was big news from Wisconsin. A couple of the poly market averages and the betting markets, which are different than polls, which we've talked about. They have Donald Trump leading now in Wisconsin. Some of them have him leading in Michigan. What is it that your numbers? What are you seeing over at Rasmussen as far as where we stand, especially with the swing states?
Yeah, give me the screen.
Oh yeah,
here's exactly what's going on.
Because
I predicted this a long time ago.
Okay.
And essentially, what you're seeing now in the news is all of this sudden realization that Kamala Harris is losing. And the truth is that if you look at Real Clear Politics, and this is literally a straight average of a selection of major polls, you can see everything's blue there. So somebody looking here might be like, oh, that's kind of rough. She's only leading by 2 points in this aggregate, which is worse than Hillary Clinton and Biden were doing She is up +2. Hillary Clinton was up +3 to 5 points.
Mhm.
Joe Biden was like, 7 or 8,
Yeah.
right? So she's doing worse than them, but the race has been locked in at 2 points for almost 2 months. And so I saw this coming. In my numbers, we just put them out again today, are +2. Trump's been at +2 for 5 weeks in a row now. And everybody, the most like blatantly left-leaning organizations like Morning Consult and Reuters Ipsos, and the biggest numbers you're seeing here are like Harris +4, Harris +5. 4 years ago with Harris +13.
Yeah.
So, but my point is that she's been doing worse at any point in time, and I've been stuck at +2 the whole time. And so, in my opinion, that shows that Donald Trump might even win the national popular vote. And
wait, what? Hold on. You just said Donald Trump may win the national popular vote?
Yeah, and I've been saying it for 6 weeks.
Wow.
Because look at my numbers here. The red keeps popping up.
Yeah.
Every week after week, +2. But the thing is that you had other pollsters come out and agreeing with me. New York Times Siena here had Trump +1. Atlas Intel did really good last time around. They have Trump +3. New York Times Siena, tie. Quinnipiac, tie. Listen, the national popular vote tie means Trump is going to sweep battleground states pretty much.
100%.
So the polling, and you don't even have to look at the national numbers. You can just go and look at Pennsylvania. And anybody who's been through a cycle or two knows that this is horrible. There's no chance for her here because Trump is tied in the aggregate, but it's the aggregates being pulled left by like this Bloomberg Morning Consult flyer. And everybody knows the polling industry time after time has a leftward bias.
Yeah.
So look, 4 years ago, Biden was leading by 7 in Pennsylvania. He won by barely over a point. So there's a 6-point polling miss. And Hillary Clinton, 8 years ago, was up 9 points in the polls.
And she
lost Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
So if there's any polling, and again, if this isn't recent, look at this.
Yeah.
For the since August, since the middle of August, since the DNC, Pennsylvania has been deadlocked, which means anybody who looks at this can say Harris is absolutely losing. But the thing is that hasn't gotten into the media because the media is trying to drag her over the finish line, and they need the narrative. They market with fear of missing out. They market on vibes. They need that vibe that she's the winner to try and get her over the hump. And all of a sudden this week, what you're witnessing is the wheels fall off and they realize they can't.
So
now, yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead. What you were saying?
Oh, I'm just saying anybody with a shred of credibility,
right? Very few of those
starting
around.
to prepare. Yeah, very few. But
Yeah.
like CNN, you're starting to see them prepare their viewers. Cenk Uygur's out there, sort of coming to the realization, and bit by bit, you're going to see this leak out there. Mark Halperin's telling everybody, and people are fighting him on Twitter.
I saw with the Raging Cajun the other day was screaming and yelling about how this is going to be a problem now, and he's scared. James Carville.
Oh, really?
Yeah, James Carville said
I missed that.
He was all hype on Kamala, and he said Trump doesn't have a chance 2 weeks ago. This morning, he's scared. So you're right. They're starting to prepare for what seems like the inevitable. So just to put it in perspective, in Pennsylvania, which we've been saying, if it's tied, that is a massive Donald Trump victory because there's a 6 or 7% difference, right?
Yeah, maybe it's only 2 or 3 points, but that means Trump's going to take Pennsylvania by 2.5, right? So, which would be bigger than his margin in 2016. And again, a lot can happen. I think there's a case to be made, in both situations. There's she does have a chance to win Pennsylvania. It absolutely can happen. Stuff happens with the mail-in ballots, or maybe everybody just totally missed. And there's, I think the more likely is that the Democrats get demoralized and don't show up, and Trump far exceeds the polling. I think that's by far the most likely case. But again, let me tell you, he's that Raging Cajun guy. He's been around a long time.
Oh yeah,
he's been through many of these. Look at this again. The polling in Pennsylvania did not change in the last 2 weeks.
Right. Nothing is moving the needle.
Did not change.
Yeah.
So why all of a sudden did the hype die? And I think it's because there was some signal, and maybe it was the Rust Belt Democrat Senate candidates leaking their internal polling that shows Harris down big. And that would be polling even to the right of mine. And I've been telling everybody that Trump is probably going to outperform my swing state polling. So, it was so predictable.
Yeah. Let's ask
And,
about that too. What is the difference between the internal polling and the external polling? Because the internal polling for the candidates is really the ones that they set their watch by. And the internal polling for Kamala Harris and the Democrats shows panic, and that's why she's off doing Colbert and she's off doing Howard Stern and she's off doing The View. How do those differentiate from what you and the other pollsters are doing?
I could do internal polling for somebody.
Yeah.
And it would just be private, and they pay me and I give them the polls because they want to know what the real answer is. And when I get sponsored and put a public poll out, or when I poll every day, I also want to tell people what the real answer is.
Right.
If you hear something like, well, the internal polling doesn't match the public polling, that just means that the public polling is propaganda. That's all it means.
Okay, good.
Because nobody's going to pay somebody to lie to them.
Yeah.
That's it. It's literally it.
Got
and
it.
I was expecting that headline to come out. And it came out like 3 or 4 weeks ago, I think, was when Alyssa Slotkin came out.
That's right. Yeah, in Michigan.
That was the biggest one there. It blew my mind that she actually did that. But it tells you that they're afraid. And even in my polling, I showed her up. So again, if the final results look like they're going to be to the right of Rasmussen reports, the industry has a problem.
All right. Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports, head pollster. Thank you so much for your time. This has been eye-opening and enlightening. And I know a lot of people are always concerned with the polls, even though, like you said, sometimes everybody could miss. Sometimes they're even better than you think. Well, explain real quick, though, again, with these poly markets and these betting markets, how are those different than polling?
So that's literally a trading market.
Yeah.
You can go in and buy what you think is going to be the outcome and make money. So right now, if you think the poly market national popular vote, I think, has Trump up maybe 6 or 8 points.
Something like that.
Today. If you think Harris is going to win, you could go buy Harris, yes, and maybe make a ton of money when she wins. But right now, on average, people betting do not think that's the case. But what's been crazy is, and I love the poly market guys, the site looks great.
Yeah.
It's got clean presentation. It's presented more like a marketplace than Predicted and some of the other names were. And they don't control those markets. They just run them.
What does control the markets? What are they getting those numbers from? Is it polls or is it other stuff?
No. People, it's literally, they're trading. Like,
I see.
That is the fair market price.
So it's consumer confidence, basically.
Yeah. I'll just bring it up quick. But the point is that anybody here can get a VPN and sign up for this and make money. And when you swing the market. So again, what was happening here is that I showed you the polling looks horrible for Harris for the last month and a half, 2 months.
Yeah.
But for the last, month and change on the poly market, it's been really tied. Like Harris was up a little bit after her debate.
Sure.
And it's been back and forth. But all of a sudden, after that, can I zoom in? All of a sudden, after that vice presidential debate, this market blew out. And it was breathtaking. It all happened in one night.
Yeah, look at that.
And what that means is I think there was a flood of trading activity, and whatever whale that was keeping the market at a certain price just couldn't do it anymore.
Wow.
I wonder if it's not literally like Act Blue or somebody with some Soros bucks. They're given, $5 million and say, keep that market as tight as you can.
Oh, yeah. I didn't even think about that. If you can manipulate it with money, sure. All you need is one big blue whale and you're good to go.
Yeah, and if somebody wants to do the work, you can actually even look at the activity here. I don't know if you can export it. The trading activities in here, though, you can actually watch in real time. I don't know where the link is. It's here somewhere.
That's all right.
You can watch the big trades and filter by the large ones and see when people are coming in and coming out. Somebody could probably track that over time. And, I wouldn't put it past maybe this is when Elon Musk's check cleared. Who knows, right? But the point is that now all of a sudden the prediction market agrees with what I think the polling, and this is a lot easier for anybody to interpret than the polling.
All right.
I can interpret the polling, but I'm a pollster. But here, look, it's like Pennsylvania. Trump's the 10-point favorite. There's no way to sugarcoat that for Harris.
Yeah.
Many markets say she's losing Pennsylvania.
Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports, is the head pollster, which we really appreciate your time again. Hold on, let me pop you back in there. I got some. There you go. And now if people want to go get your polls and your information and they want to keep track with what's really going on from the best pollster in the industry, where do they go?
Twitter at Rasmussen_poll, or go to our website, rasmussenreports.com. You can get a free daily newsletter that shows you like all the stuff we put out. All of the crosstabs for the election stuff are open to the public and not behind a paywall. And we'd really appreciate it if people could support us with a Twitter subscription or a reader subscription. We're funded by advertising and subscription revenue, not like, Rupert Murdoch bucks or something like that. So really appreciate any help people can give.
RASMUSSEN. RASMUSSEN. Mark, thanks so much for the time. I really appreciate it. I'll tell you what, I have that James Carville clip, by the way. I have that James Carville clip, and I'm going to play it for you in just a minute. But the reason that this election is so important, and really any election is so important, is because everybody needs to concentrate on themselves and making themselves the best possible person they could be. And speaking of advertiser bucks and subscriber bucks and being a small outfit, we here are also a small outfit, and that's why we're so excited when we get the help and support, not just of you, the viewers and the listeners and people who are subscribing and throwing us super chats, but when we get, noticed by some bigwigs in the industry like Chuck Norris. And Chuck Norris is not just an American icon, but somebody who has those great conservative values that we love. He's also a capitalist, and I'm a big capitalist, and so I always like to be in a position where we can support each other. And Chuck Norris has become a supporter of this show. He has a brand new video that he put out because Chuck Norris has created and developed and investigated his health, and he's pinpointed 3 things that sabotage our body as we age. And look at him. He's been able to figure out with just one small change how to counteract all of those things. And now this dude is 84 years old. He's 84 years old, and he is stronger, and he can work out longer. He has plenty of energy. He's smiling. There's his wife. His wife feels 10 years younger as well because she made the same single change that Chuck Norris did, and now they're leaner. They have energy all day long. And so Chuck did this video that you can go watch after the show. It's at chuckdefense.com/MK. chuckdefense.com/MK. And I put a link to this video in the bio. In the description, so you can go watch it later on. It's his method. It shows you the 3 things that sabotage our bodies as we age. And the one thing he discovered could dramatically change his health. And most importantly, can dramatically change your health as well. chuckdefense.com/MK. And we appreciate all the help from Chuck Norris as well. All right, let's get to this clip from James Carville. James Carville, the Ragin' Cajun. And let me show you on Breitbart here. Breitbart has shown, Breitbart has this article. Here it is. Carville, I'm scared to death about the election. Harris needs to be much more aggressive. And it goes through, and he's talking with Ari Melber. And let me just play you the clip because this shows you exactly James Carville, while he's a terrible, horrible, no good, very bad socialist, he's also kind of not an idiot. And he knows when things are going badly, and he knows when it's time to take your foot off the brake and slam down on the gas. He's worked with Clinton, he's worked with Obama, he's worked with countless Democrats. And listen to what he told Ari Melber.
The only thing I feel is the election's coming November 5th. And I'm scared to death, and I'll get a time to, obviously.
You're not in a reflective mood.
Not in a particular reflective mood right now. I'm very, very concerned and very
What does Harris need to do with the month left?
All right, 7 months left. Let's start. We got 26 days. Yep. Today is gone. You're going to lose 4th of the hurricane. Just subtract that. We're going to get blank. You're not going to be able to get much out for the next 4 days. So, and everything kind of shuts down the Saturday before the election. So you're really probably under 20 days that you have to really get a message out. They need to be sharp. They need to be aggressive. They need to stop answering questions and start asking questions. They're doing all this and sitting down with 60 Minutes and sitting down with Colbert and sitting down with, no matter what, if I come on your show, you're going to ask me the question.
That's true.
If I have a press conference, I get to ask the question.
You'd like to see her do more press conferences?
I'd like her to put more things in play. Like
where she's out driving it.
Out saying, what is J.D. Vance talking about that Trump saved Obamacare, tried to destroy it at every point? I would put President Obama out to make that. He's only got a 92% approval with Democrats. He only is the father of 23 million people having insurance. I would have President Clinton going on these local TV stations talking about how tariffs are going to destroy the economy of Wisconsin or Michigan or anywhere else because they have never worked. But we're just letting that go. And I think she and the whole campaign needs to be much more aggressive and much less passive than they are.
The problem he started with was he said they need to be sharp, and there's nobody duller than Kamala Harris and tampon Tim Walz. Putting Barack Obama out there with a 92% approval rating would be a great idea if Barack Obama wanted to be part of this sinking ship known as the Kamala Harris campaign. And I just don't think Barack Obama wants that. Barack Obama, also a politically savvy man. And if he has this high approval rating, he's not going to go spend it or spoil it or ruin it on a candidate like Kamala Harris. I imagine with 20 days left in this election, Barack Obama has already probably taken a look at the landscape and thought, you know what? I feel like we're going to lose it this time around. It's only 4 years. In 4 years, we'll groom somebody else, somebody that I choose, not somebody that bumbling Joe Biden chooses out of spite. We'll pick somebody who's not a doddering idiot, somebody who didn't have to dip out of the first presidential campaign she ever ran because nobody liked her, nobody voted for her, nobody donated to her campaign. We'll find a candidate, we'll groom them, and I will sit back and I will not do a lot this time. Yes, he's going to Pennsylvania to do a rally. I get that. But I think that Barack Obama knows that this is a lost cause. And as we get closer and closer to Election Day, as we look closer and closer at those polls, you're going to see prominent Democrats doing exactly what Mark Mitchell just said. They are going to start distancing themselves, and they're going to start preparing people for the loss. They're going to prepare their audience for the loss. They're going to say, look, we are now we are not in search and rescue mode. Okay, we're going to be in recovery mode. We're searching for a campaign. We're trying to rescue this campaign. We're trying to come up with questions. We're trying to get out there. We're trying to be aggressive. Search and rescue is over for Kamala Harris's 2024 presidential campaign. You've only got 20 days. You're now in a recovery mode. And that means that they're going to be trying to recover whatever pieces they can, look at their strongholds, try to find the candidate that's going to help them win the next time around. And that's who they're going to have to go with. And it could be Gavin Newsom. It could be, I don't know. I'm sure I don't look out at the Democrat Party and go, wow, there's a lot of superstars there. I also don't look at the Democrat voters and think that either. There's a TikTok I wanted to play with you, by the way, because this is why Kamala Harris is so bad. When you create a platform based on only social issues, again, the real issues are not social issues. Social issues are like the candy issues. They're the frou-frou issues. The real issues, the heart of the cake. Like when you look at a cake, I don't know if you ever watched Buddy the Cake Guy, whatever his name was. But if you look at like Buddy the Cake, anyone who makes a cake, you've got these big slabs of bread looking substance, and they're not attractive. They're not pretty, but that's the cake. And there could be 3 layers or 4 layers, however big you want to make it. And it's delicious. It's not nutritious, but it's, it's what you want. You want 3 layers of big solid cake. And before you put on the icing and the sprinkles and everything else, it just looks blah and blasé and plain. And then you start decorating it. Well, the economy is the first tier of the cake. The border issue is the second tier of the cake. Inflation is the third tier of the cake. With public safety, foreign policy, keeping us out of wars, keeping your family safe from terrorism. Those are the layers of the cake. Kamala Harris, she doesn't like all that. She likes the fluff. She likes the marshmallow fluff that you put around it. Stuff like, women's rights and abortion issues and transgender issues. And no one's going to tell us what we can do with and no one's going to talk badly about people who want to be called they, them. And nobody's going to go into the military feeling offended when a drill sergeant yells at them, and nobody's going to misgender anyone. These are the ridiculous issues that she thinks people care about, but they don't. If you accidentally took out a loan to pay for your schooling, and you realize now that you studied something ridiculous and you can't get a job to pay back your loans, don't worry. We'll pay it back. Those aren't real issues. That's the icing on the cake. And when you just have an entire campaign based on social issues, and you only campaign on places like TikTok, you get voters and supporters and members of the Democrat Party, well, like this girl.
Trump or Kamala?
Kamala.
Why are you voting for Kamala?
Because Trump fucking sucks. Because she's trying to make the world a lot cheaper to live in. The amount of money that costs to just do anything keeps increasing so much.
So do you think that's Biden and Kamala's fault?
I think that's always been happening. how much things have cost has always been like increasing.
So you think Kamala's going to fix it, even though she's already been VP for 4 years?
What did Trump do?
I think he fixed it.
Did he?
Yeah, I think the economy was way better. Houses were cheaper, rent was cheaper, grocery prices were cheaper. What is Kamala's greatest achievement as VP?
I literally don't know. I have no idea.
You don't know anything she's done.
No, I don't.
But she's still the better choice.
Yes, because I know a lot of things that he has done.
Like, you know a lot of things about Trump that are negative?
Yeah. He's racist. He's sexist.
Okay, well, what has he done that's racist?
Specifically, I don't watch anything with Trump in it. I just see, like, I don't watch things politically.
So you just have an opinion, but you don't really know why?
Yeah.
I don't watch things politically.
I don't watch things politically.
Duh. I don't want, he's just a racist. Why? I don't know. I don't watch that. I don't keep up with politics. Somebody said he was a racist on TikTok, so he's got to be a racist. But don't ask me questions about politically things.
I don't watch things politically.
That's Kamala Harris's voting block right there. That's the one that she thought. She thought that the good vibes, and you hear about it. Oh, she's going to make everything cheaper. Oh, Kamala's got all these solutions. She's got the good vibes. That's a good vibes girl right there. She wants some good vibes, yo. She wants to take a big fat toke off of the Kamala, what do you call it? Fatty. No, I'm sorry. The Kamala fatty, otherwise known as Tim Walz.
And I'm a knucklehead at times.
Yeah, anyway, but she wants to just feel those good vibes for the next 4 years. And Kamala's going to give her those good vibes. And Donald Trump is a racist. And she has nothing to base it on because she doesn't watch things. I mean, politically.
I don't watch things politically.
Then the problem is Democrats did this to themselves. They said, okay, look, we have a bad border policy and we've had it for 3 years and we did it to bring in more illegals so that they could vote for Democrats when we give them amnesty. The problem they're finding is that these illegal immigrants that they're bringing in from El Salvador and Venezuela and Mexico and from other places aren't really Democrats. They're Republicans. They're Catholic. They're Christian. They're conservative. They don't like abortion. They don't really like drugs either. I mean, the ones that bring them in do, but the other ones don't. They don't want Kamala Harris to ruin their lives. They don't want to. No illegal immigrant wants. I mean, think about this. You're living in El Salvador. You're kicking it. You're like, oh, the border's open. I'm going to go and start my life in America. You don't want to roll in and show up and be like, $4.50 for a gallon of gas? What is she, crazy? You don't want that. That's not the American dream you have. That's not why you're here. That's not why they're importing you. You've been lied to. I mean, we saw in the winter, and you'll see it again, in the winter in Chicago, it was so cold and there was no housing and there were no jobs and there was no food and there was no place to go that illegal immigrants were going back to Venezuela because they were like, screw this. It's cold. I got no food, no job. I'm going back home where it's warm. Donald Trump, when he wins the election in November, you are going to see, I think here's what's going to happen. I'm predicting this now. I used to say that from November 5th to January 20th, from election day to inauguration day, I thought would be the most dangerous time in our history. And I thought it might be the biggest influx of illegal immigration because Joe Biden, Kamala Harris would just throw the border wide open. They would let everybody in a last-ditch effort. And then January 20th, Donald Trump would shut it closed. I thought that. But now that I'm looking at what's going on and I'm looking at the situation and I'm looking at what an effective leader Donald Trump is, I don't know that that's the case anymore. I think you might see the opposite happen. I think that because it's getting colder, it's going to get colder in all these major cities. It's going to get colder in New York. It's going to get colder in Chicago. It's going to get colder in Washington, D.C. and Portland. It's going to get colder in all these places where they're bringing all these immigrants. It's going to get cold in Ohio. All those cat-eating Haitians that they brought into Ohio, they're going to start getting cold. And they don't have places to live, a lot of them. They might, knowing that Donald Trump is coming back to power, knowing that they're going to be deported as part of the biggest mass deportation effort in history, they may self-deport this Christmas. There may be the opposite than what I think happening. I don't know for sure. It may still be the most dangerous time. It may be that the floodgates open, but there's a possibility because Donald Trump is going to take power November 5th. Joe Biden has been deleted from presidential history. Joe Biden is no longer doing anything except trying to thwart Kamala Harris's objective, which is to win the election. And so Joe Biden's not going to stand in his way. Donald Trump, when he wins on November 5th or 6th or 7th or however long it takes, when he wins the election, he's going to jump right back in immediately. He's already claimed that as president-elect, he will end the Ukraine war. As president-elect, Donald Trump has a plan to end the Ukraine war. He has a plan to go in and talk to Zelensky, talk to Putin, and say, guys, this is what we're doing. He'll probably end the war in the Middle East, and he'll do it all during his transition. So on day one of his second term, he can really just hit the ground running with all kinds of executive orders to shut down the border and drill baby drill and start the mass deportations. But there's a lot of stuff he could do beforehand. And I think just the threat of Donald Trump coming back to power, just the threat, just knowing that the time is ticking and Donald Trump is going to put his hand on that Bible and he's going to swear for the second time an oath to uphold the Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. I think just seeing that and knowing that that's about to happen could have a different effect on the immigration problem here in the country. I don't know for sure. I'm just saying. All right, listen, we have, oh, by the way, do you want to see this? Do you want to see Tim and Doug getting coffee? That's Tim and Doug. I'm sorry. It was Tim and Doug getting coffee, except Tim actually got tea. And nobody paid for it. They had to send some aid up because they walked away without paying, because that's what you do when you're an elite Democrat politician. You don't pay. You just walk away. Listen, thank you so much for joining me today. We are going to keep our fingers on the whole hurricane relief effort, what's going on with hurricane relief. Like I said, the devastation here in Florida, a lot of the deaths and a lot of the destruction, the really deadly stuff came from the tornadoes, which were a direct result of Milton. And Milton itself, there was a lot of flooding, but because of the massive evacuation, we have a lot of property damage that's going to have to be dealt with. But I think because a lot of people heeded the warning and they left, and now they're coming back in, it's just going to be a lot of inconvenience for folks and a lot of rebuilding. However, it is sad, of course, that anybody lost their lives. And that's just the beginning of what we know. We're going to find out more and more as these things come across. But the consensus seems to be at the outset that Milton was not as severe a storm as we maybe thought it was going to be. And I have to watch my hurricane language.
The other point, Mike, that I would make, especially it came through on the briefing from the federal experts, it's really important that we think about the language that we're using to talk about what we are predicting. Because, for example, it has moved from time to time from a Category 5 to a Category 4. It's important that we not emphasize that downgrading has happened, because, in fact, the difference between Category 5 and Category 4 in terms of the danger and the damage is pretty much the same.
Yeah, it's pretty much the same. And if you don't believe me, and if you don't believe Kamala Harris, just look what happened to Anderson Cooper.
And the water now is really starting to pour over. If you look at the graph, whoa. Okay. That wasn't good.
Yeah.
We'll probably go in.
Okay, listen, thank you so much for subscribing, everybody. We really oh, by the way, we've been getting some amazing reviews on my brand new book, Cancel Proof. So if you have not yet gotten your copy of Cancel Proof, please do. Please do. This is really, it's really a fun book. It's a great book. It's got great savvy advice. Cancel Proof, my proven social media strategy for conservatives to thrive online. And we still are in the pre-launch offer phase. So what happens is when you go to markk.com/cancel, you can pick up a copy of Cancel Proof, and I'm going to kick in an audiobook. So you can get the book, you can read it, you could also hear me read it to you for those of you that just love the sound of my voice or just don't have time to read. You can plug it into your phone, you can play it in the car, you can play it at the gym, you can play it wherever you want. Instant access to both of those is only $24. markkaye.com/cancel, markkaye.com/cancel. If you are a conservative and you're on social media, these are practical tips that you need to know. These are practical tips that you can benefit from so that you can just totally crush it on social media, even though it's a cancel happy, woke run industry. You know, I've been canceled so many times, and other people I know have been canceled so many times. We've figured out a way to beat the system, and it's all right here. My true story, the true story of other conservatives just like you. Canceled Proof. Go to markk.com/cancel. Thanks again. Don't forget to subscribe and share. We'll be back tomorrow with more information. I will be broadcasting every single day between now and election. We only got like 20 some odd days left. Every single day between now and Election Day, we will be here to bring you the information you need. Live from Mar-a-Lago, Patriot HQ. I'll be bringing you all the stuff If you continue to watch, you are going to be able to get all the things politically that you need.
I don't watch things politically.
Okay, I do. So make sure you're subscribed, and I'll bring you all the political things that you need so that you're well equipped, so that you're well armed, so that in 20 some odd days, we can all save the Republic.